Shalom, Yadid. How are you? All right, good to see y'all on this day. Shabbat Shalom. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, Shalom. I am Brother Isaiah, also known as Mr. Blacktastic or Yeshaya. Welcome, beloved. I'm a born-again Messianic Israelite follower of Adonai Yeshua HaMashiach, also known as the Lord Jesus Christ. I believe Almighty God is awakening a remnant of scattered Israel as dry bones in a valley to their identity as natural descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as part of the promised seed of faith. I believe the greater portion of this awakening remnant of Israel, pardon me, are Negro slave and immigrant descendants in the Western world. I believe this awakening is to bring together Israelite and Gentile believers as one in Christ to fulfill Scripture before the imminent return of Christ to reign on earth and before the final judgment. It is my sincere prayer that through the ministry of the Scriptures by the Holy Spirit, I may serve my generation as a prophetic voice to awaken Israel and all in need of salvation through the gospel of Yeshua Mashiach. On this platform, I will be teaching or discussing Scripture, history, and other relevant issues. I pray you receive insight, inspiration, and faith by the word in the name of Adonai Yeshua. All right, so Shabbat Shalom, beloved. All right, glad to see y'all. Got this, my hair looking all crazy, but who cares? It is what it is. It's Friday. I guess I can look crazy. All right, it's Sabbath, so it is what it is. But glad to be with you all. It's been some time now that I have been off the airwaves, tending to some personal issues and dealing with, personally, I just be honest with you all, very one thing after another in terms of loss and tragedy that not only has affected me, but other loved ones. And so it just kind of all piled up for a moment, and then also needing to take some necessary time just to recruit, and refresh myself both spiritually and mentally. And I believe that we've done that. There are times in life when you go through things that are what the scriptures call the Euroclydon. All right, if you look in the book of Acts, chapter, I believe it's 27, it talks about the storm that the Apostle Paul and others who were on the boat on their way to Rome went through while they were out in the sea. And one of the terms that it uses in the Greek is the word Euroclydon. And that's kind of, sometimes you go through those Euroclydon seasons. And in fact, I'll be teaching or preaching, however you want to call it, on that perhaps tomorrow for Sabbath service, because I did mention that I'm going to start doing a Sabbath service type of messages on Shabbat, on Saturdays in particular, which will be different from the normal format that I normally do on Mondays and Thursdays, which I try to be more consistent on in terms of doing that teaching at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so it'll be a little bit different in terms of, it'll be more of a shorter message, that'll focus on a message in particular for the purpose of instilling in you, the listener, and those who are the believers with something powerful for your soul. And so, and thank you all for all your prayers, your well wishes, your concerns, and even your gifts and things of those who reached out to me, because I really was kind of silent. I'm like that in some way, you all, where I kind of withdraw a bit and don't really say a whole lot, except to, probably those in my inner circle. Sometimes they've gotten upset with me because I haven't said anything to them. But I'm thankful to the Most High for all of you that are in attendance on tonight. I didn't do a roll call. Looks like the names are piling up too fast for me to do that. But I'm certainly glad to see all of you that are in there and that are here on tonight. And you're going to be blessed on tonight, because what we're going to do on tonight is start the first of what will hopefully become a series of teachings in which I bring our special guest on to assist us with helping us to learn and understand the languages of the Bible. So tonight you're in for a treat, as I've titled on the show, Language, Linguistics, Translation and Transliteration #1. And that's because I don't plan on this being the only time that we do this. And I've been wanting to get her on the platform for some time now. And so, and I know it's already, like I said, it's already 8 p.m. here on the East Coast or in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. For some of you others, it's 5 p.m. on the West Coast, 6 p.m. in Mountain Standard Time, and then about 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. But it's Friday, all right? Y'all not clubbing no more. Y'all supposed to be born again. So you got some time to hang out with us on tonight. Even if other platforms and things are going on, I don't expect that we'll be so long on tonight that you won't be able to also support the other brothers and sisters, because we're going to try to be expeditious, but we're going to also try to be very informative. And so without further delay or ado, I'm going to bring on our special guest here on tonight. And that is none other than Sister Ashanti, a.k.a. Shanti. DOC or the Doc. That's what I'm gonna start calling her. What's going on, my sister? Shalom to you.
Shalom, Achi Yeshaya Ma'ara. It's good to be here. Good to be here.
See, I just love to hear when you speak the language, and when I love to hear that, because I'm half country, half ghetto, so I'm country. So I just ghetto country. So even though I think I'm well versed or well schooled in certain things, when it comes to pronouncing the languages, and I hear other people talk, I'm always so impressed, and I just say, like, man, I wish I could talk like that. So when you say that, Baruka, I love it. I love it. When I grow up, I will speak like that.
No doubt, no doubt. I'm from California, but my peoples originally are from Mobile, Alabama. So
okay, so they from
yeah.
the South. All right. All right.
Yep.
But you got that, you got that California, I can tell you got the California back the swag. I can hear it in your voice. I lived there for most of my life. You're in Sacktown in Sacramento. I was in Southern California. And when I moved to California, I was just a teenager, and cats in the hood on the street. Well, first it was people in the church actually, but somehow people in the street found out, and they started calling me Big Hee-Haw because of my country accent that would come out.
Oh my God!
They started calling me. So it's like, man, countries, I don't know what. The funny thing is, I'm not even originally from the South. I live here now for the last about 8 years now in Atlanta, or in the Atlanta metro area. But I'm originally was born in Illinois.
Okay.
I ended up on the West Coast for, like I said, more than half of my life, and now I'm on the left. I'm on the right coast. I was on the left coast. Now I'm on the right coast. They say west and east. So now, I'm out here, the southeast, but it's still the South. SOOUF, the South. That's how they say it. So I'm out here, and I'm just, like I said, I'm grateful, but I have been exposed to a lot of different accents and languages. We have Sister Angie in the chat, one of our prayer warriors who keeps us all lifted up. She says, I'm proper country. See, so learn
Y'all
something
got no
every
sense.
day. Right? So there's such a thing. I guess I'm proper country. And when I first heard your accent, I actually thought you were more East Coast, like New York.
That's what I get.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm rapping since the age of 12 years old, and
wow.
the person I looked up to rapping, definitely MC Light, Salt and Pepper, Queen Latifah, Moni Love, and then the rest of the the East Coast people. Those were the main ones. So definitely, and then you get into. I mean, you're from the hood. I'm from the hood. I'm from Sacramento, California. Definitely a hood suburb, North Highlands. And so, you get into the hood lingo, the swag, the language, the dialect, everything. So, you're gonna hear some hood slip up, even though I'm trying to be proper tonight. But you're gonna hear some things when I'm really getting into gear.
All right. Well, we're gonna let it all hang out. We're gonna let it all come out, because it's Shabbat. We're talking to family, so it's just, between us and everybody in the chat that's listening. Hey, it's just one big family get together. That's what we having a cookout.
Right on. I'm here barbecuing with you.
So. And then because we are, Israelites, we just got to make sure all our guests know we don't eat pork. So bring potato salad without raisins and no pork to the cookout. And we be more.
That's funny.
And we got a variety of accents, on the platform as well as in the chat. So I'm definitely glad to have you on. And me and my dear friend and good sister, Sister E. We have talked about you, and we have both been in high admiration. I know she's going to have you on also, and so I'm planning on also participating in, and just spectating and watching and supporting that, because I'm sure you all probably get into some different things than what we'll be discussing here tonight. But I have been wanting to get sisters on the platform for some time now. And then because I've been wanting to show the Israelite community as well as the Bible believing world, that, hey, the women being used by the Most High didn't stop with Deborah and Miriam and Huldah, and Anna the prophetess and the 4 daughters of Philip. But, Joel did say your sons and daughters, will prophesy. And so I believe firmly that women have something to say. And I also believe that when we cut out the women in the ministry, you cut off half of your ministry. So you can't be effective as a whole if you didn't cut off half. As one old elder used to tell me in the Christian church, he said, if you take the sisters out to church on Sunday, you can't go to the bank on Monday. So I think regardless of what happened in the garden, half of humanity is dependent on the woman, just like half is dependent on the man working together. And the redemption of the woman was in that the seed of promise, which was Christ himself, came through her to be a blessing to the world. And so I believe that we got to use all of our available resources, and I want our sisters to be honored and used in that regard. And so you'll never on this platform, I say this to everybody listening, you'll never on this platform hear me preach or teach a chauvinistic or misogynistic message and try to shut the sisters down. But we're going to give them voice, and we're going to allow them to be used as the daughters of Zion. So tonight, see, I'm already kind of doing the hood stuff, see?
Hey, I'm good at that.
Tonight, we got one of the daughters of Zion, live and direct and in full effect. All right.
Yeah.
And she's going to be back, because this is part 1, and I have put no limit on how many parts of this that we'll do. So we're just going to keep going and flowing. And even if this series comes to an end, I'll bring it back on something else. We just transition into something else, because largely what we all do here tonight is going to be in response, as well as to the needs, rather, of the listener, as well as to the guiding and direction of the Ruach HaKodesh. So it's important that we feed the need of the Most High's people. And that's why she's on here tonight, because she's able to do that. Now, if you are a brother that's been baptized in lemon juice and filled with vinegar, and you just cannot listen to a sister teach, then this platform is not for you. Okay. There is a Sour Patch Kid revival going on somewhere that you can identify with and participate in, because this one will not help you, brother, because your mind and your heart is already hardened. And if you are a sister that feels that way, then you can follow that brother. All right. But if you are here to get a word from on high and to learn, all right, both academically as well as theologically, then you're in the right place. All right. So, Sister Ashanti, give us a little bit of your background, where you from, and your background in terms of how you came to saving knowledge of the Most High in Yeshua.
All right, so I got to give my spiel. Shalom lechol, shalom lechol, mishpacha v'chabrim. That means shalom, wellness, wholeness to all of family and friends, and kol tehalim, kol kalbod, wahatiferet leYahweh Avinu Eloheinu. That is all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, our Father, our Elohim. All right.
Now, you know I'm gonna make you recite all of this for me again, right? And I will practice it, like I'm practicing a speech or something, so I can say it too. All right?
I got you. All
right. So you gotta coach me through all of that.
I got you. All right. So pretty much when I say Kol Tehalim, that means all praise, Kol Kabod, all honor, Way and Hatiferet, glory, all honor, all praise, honor, and glory. Abinu, that means our Father, Abinu. Lakol, I said Le Yahweh, to Yahweh, Le Yahweh, to Yahweh. Abinu, because Abba is Father, and when you say Abinu, that means our Father. And then when you say Elohim, that's, God. But when you say Eloheinu, that's our God, our power, our deity. Yeah. So that's what I was saying.
I love it.
Yeah. Ashanti. I was born and raised in Sacramento, California, by way of, the hood, the suburb, North Highlands. I am a daughter. I am a wife. I've been legally married for 5 years with my husband for 15 years. I grew up in the church, raised Baptist. I actually grew up Baptist, went to a couple of churches. I grew up in the family church, since birth. And then that was 1998. I left that church and I joined a church, actually, that's down the street from me, called Genesis Baptist Church. Before that, it was Mount Calvary Baptist Church. And so 98 to 2011, that was the last years of me being in church. My mother, she was the youth director at Mount Calvary, even when a lot of the family did leave. So in 98, I left Mount Calvary, but my mother stayed as the youth director. She did not want to leave the children. As a part of that ministry, I was in the youth department and the youth choir. I was the choir director.
What? So you got all the hand movements and everything.
I know the C for the chorus, the special T taker from the top, all of it. And I was rocking too, we grew up with the John P. Key and the Hezekiah Walker,
all right.
Yeah. Donald Lawrence, Tri-City Singers. We was jamming. And I was also a part of the youth choir for the Northern California chapter of California for the Gospel Music Workshop of America. So I was also the choir director for that.
Okay.
Yeah. I was a part of that. So I definitely have a heavy church background. And my mother, she was a youth director, as I was saying, and she had us heavily into the church. So did my grandmother too, rest her soul. So my mother, she passed away 2011, and that kind of got me to thinking about some things. My mother, she was on hospice her last few weeks of living, and in her last few weeks of living, she was teaching me and the rest of my siblings about health. She was diagnosed with cancer in 2009, and she went vegan. And when she got diagnosed, she was in stage 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So in her last weeks of living, she said something about God having the children of Israel on a diet. And that stuck in the back of my mind. I just put it in the back of my mind. I had never heard her say that before. I had never heard anybody in church say that to me before, but I kept it in my mental registry. And so 2012 came, a lot of things happened. I was, in the music, doing music. I was rapping since the age of 12. Right. I did gospel hip hop in the church from about 12 to 15. Then I stopped doing gospel rap. Then I just stopped doing gospel rap, but I did secular rap. And then came back from doing a semester of school at Alabama State. I did only one semester at Alabama State University. Then I came back to Sacramento. That was when I was 19 years old. And I got back into the music, but secular. Right.
Okay.
So yeah, I was rapping.
Was it all rap or any singing along with it?
I had some melodious, harmonious, flow, if you will, because I was in the choir,
Okay.
So yeah, I started smoking, what you call it, the cigars, the Black and Milds. I started smoking. So I started smoking, and I kept smoking till the age of like 32. When my mom got cancer, she didn't die of lung cancer, but just cancer. It started off as breast cancer, then it spread. So I wanted to quit smoking. And so, but between 2011, 2012, I started reading the whole Bible because, mom passed away. I had some great, deep wounds going on. I stopped rapping and I wanted to get my life together. So I quit cold turkey with the help of the Most High and my husband, and I also began reading the Bible, like I said. And then 2012, that was my last years of celebrating. I did celebrate Halloween that year, celebrated Thanksgiving and Christmas. That was my last year, so I was still reading, but didn't get to what I needed to get across yet, as far as now that I'm not celebrating. I didn't get to that point yet. But 2013 came. I think it was pretty much like the winter transitioning into spring. Something I ran across the Bible when I was reading it started clicking. And I was like, well, why is it that what I see in the Bible is not necessarily what we do in the church? It looks like we do a couple of things, but the majority of the things is like, why are we doing these things that I don't see here? So I started researching, and I told my husband I was going to go to the library for a couple of hours a day for like 3 or 4 days out the week after work. And he was like, nah, just get on the internet. And I was like, wait a minute, pause. I was like, you think what I'm looking for is on the internet? He was like, yeah, it's like, I didn't know the internet. I didn't know the internet was like the information highway then. So, I went gung ho. I reached out to some people on Facebook. Thank you, sis. I reached out to some people on Facebook because I was like, okay, I now know that I'm not supposed to be doing certain things. I'm trying to find a church, not a SDA, not a Seventh-day Adventist church, right? Because I knew about that then. Right. I was trying to find a church that was doing what I saw in the Bible. Right, as far as the holidays and the feast days or whatever. And I was like, why can't I find a church? And somebody said, Shanti, you have to look for a congregation that's labeling itself messianic. I did not know, because I came into this walk solo dolo. So
and this is 2013, right?
This is 2013. Yeah, 2013. And I found a congregation in Sacramento in the fall, and they were beginning the Torah cycle, going through the parashah or the Torah portions. You read a little bit of, the Torah, and then you read the prophets, then you read the Brit HaHadashah, or the New Testament that comes, right? So 2013 I did that, and then I think it was December, January, something like that. They started classes for learning biblical Hebrew, and so I joined those classes. And it was kind of at a slower pace than what I wanted to go at. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna pick me up a supplement while I'm in class so I can challenge myself to go at the pace that I'm comfortable with. And I ran across a brother on YouTube. He's no longer teaching, but he was teaching in biblical Hebrew. When he was doing his lessons, he was teaching in biblical Hebrew. And he was like, yeah, I learned how to read using this. So I picked this up, and that's pretty much where the journey began with this biblical Hebrew thing.
Put that book up on the screen one more time.
Okay.
I'll put you on the big screen so everybody can see you.
Gotcha.
All right.
Yeah.
Hebrew. And who's the author on that right there?
John H. Dobson.
All right. John H. So Learn Biblical. Let me make sure I type that in.
Mm-hmm.
Learn Biblical Hebrew by John H. Dobson. All right. So I'll put that in the chat for everybody. All right.
Yep. I'm going to show another source I got into later that I also went through. But that started me out in my journey learning biblical Hebrew. And then I ran across some other people on Facebook who were learning as well. And then I ran into a couple of teachers who I didn't necessarily be their student, but I kind of was learning, from them or whatnot. But a brother by the name of Mitzalel, I forget how you pronounce his last name, but a brother named Mitzalel, I ran across him, and he has a crew called Paradigm. But that's just the slang way of saying paradigm, like a paradigm chart.
Right.
Paradigm. And he's well versed in like Hebrew, Akkadian, Ugaritic, and also a little bit of the biblical Greek. So I ran into him, and I would confirm, my pronunciations or things that I was learning in that grammar book with him. And then last year I ran into a few years ago, I ran into a brother named Emissary Clay, and now he goes by Amitz Ben Yehuda. Okay. So I also bounced things off with him. And then I think it was last year or this past year, ran into a brother. This brother is fluent in not only biblical Hebrew, but Israeli Hebrew. He has full-blown conversations.
So he has the modern dialect that they're using currently right now. Okay.
Yeah. His name is Brother David Royal, and he's on YouTube, y'all. He's on YouTube. His page is called D Glenn and then Royal. D Glenn Royal.
Moray Royal. Yeah, I'm familiar with him. When you sent me the link to his channel, I actually started following, so I can try to keep up with him, because I know he and I have never talked to him yet or met him, and I hope that I will be able to do that soon. Maybe have him on the platform. I know that he's interacted. We know some of the same people that are familiar, with him. And so I said, okay, she's in very, very good company, if she's dealing with Moray Royal.
That's right.
I am familiar with him.
That's right. So that's my spiel.
Okay, all right. So we got the 411, So now see the rapper part. I'm very intrigued by that.
Oh, okay.
But that explains some little nuances and things that I picked up on about you.
I got a hip hop appeal to me. I can't help it,
All right. Yeah, I picked up on. So I said, okay, I used to do a little rapping back in the day. Myself, I'm amazed at how many times I find or meet people that are doing ministry now that have that similar background, you know. Because
that's why me and you got the same crate music. You know what I mean?
yeah, you know, we talked
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, yeah, the whole itching for a scratch thing. You know, some of the people, the brothers and sisters in the chat, remember when I did that lesson a few weeks ago, and everybody remember. It was funny. Everybody was telling on themselves because the title was "Itching for a Scratch," and folks remember that song by the Force MDs. So I said, y'all still got that album. You know, we still got those oldies. You know, that was good music for us.
Yep.
But yeah, you know, because they make fun of me. One brother, he always comes in my chat when I'm talking. He says bars. That's all he says.
Hey,
you know,
those songs.
He's being complimentary, but he's commenting on, because I guess sometimes without realizing, because my kids had told me, they said, "Dad, you be rapping and don't even know you be rapping." And they say you be rhyming. So I guess it's still in us to a certain degree, you know. But
Absolutely.
that's all right. You know? That's culturally unique on our behalf. I believe the Most High gave us that to communicate, you know. So a few questions things I want to get in on tonight. Like I said, this is lesson number 1, y'all, because we're going to have Sister Ashanti back as many times as we possibly can. You know, she'll have to leave the country and hide for us to keep her from coming back. All right, and then even then we're going to track her down and find her, even if she's in Siberia, all right, or Antarctica. We'll be like, "Hey, you gotta come on and do this live." I don't care about the polar bears and penguins. You got to do this live anyway.
No problem.
But one of the things, because I have noticed this, because I started taking Hebrew in 1995. Because I was getting out of the Marine Corps at towards the end of '94, and I had enrolled in school at that time. In fact, I was taking secular courses at the Riverside Community College. I started going to junior college first, and that was at the Norco, California campus, right next to Corona, California, Southern California Empire. And then I was also going to a seminary at the time. And that's where I first started. I got introduced to the language. Now, I had already been saved and in ministry, but I hadn't really had any formal training. And even though I started that long ago, one of the things I've learned about learning languages, because the method that I started being introduced to other languages was through the military. And they don't really teach you how to be fluent in the language as much as they teach you how to understand words, syllables, you know, and things, so you can identify code, simple speech, and, you know, understand what's being said to you and communicate it. So I've always kept that method, because it's like kind of a fast way of being able to, you know, understand what somebody is saying, you know. And then because you have to learn so many different languages, you don't necessarily focus on one particular thing. But the people that were linguists, they were very fluent, and they worked in intelligence and all the other kind of stuff, more or less, to help those that were in the field operating. They knew all the nuances of the language. And so over the years, what I found is, you know, Hebrew is one of the best languages to learn, I feel. And then I also, as many people, and I think this is just from a standpoint, I won't say ignorance, not in a negative connotation, but in just the connotation or sense of not knowing. Greek is another language that people sleep on in terms of understanding certain things. And there's a history behind the both of them. So when I was studying, one of the books I was first introduced to by my Hebrew teacher was a book called Our Father Abraham. And it talked about the one of the aspects that it talked about concerning quote unquote church history or ecclesia history was the failure of the now Gentile dominated ecclesia, you know, in adhering to its Hebrew roots and throwing out a lot of the Hebrew culture, beginning with the language. So can you expound on what you've seen in that regard? Is there a problem when we do that, rather than we got Old Testament and Hebrew and some Aramaic, and then you have New Testament and predominantly Greek. And a lot of times it seems like in our community in particular, people try to elevate one language over the other or talk about the superiority of one thing and don't even have a full grasp of the culture out of which these languages come. What's your perspective of that?
I definitely see a lot of that. What you're talking about, people actually they come into this walk and they do hold the Hebraic culture to a certain standard, to a certain regard, and with us, primarily us Americans being raised in the Western culture over here, we do have and we bring over to the Hebraic culture, unbeknownst to us, we bring over our preconceived notions, biases, worldviews, opinions. We bring those things over, and there's a tendency to read a translation and put your Western American definition on that Hebrew or Greek word, not even realizing that the translation in front of you, it was not originally written in that language. It was written, for the Old Testament or the Tanakh, the Torah, Naviim, and Ketuvim, that was written in biblical Hebrew with the Aramaic block script consonants or letters, and then there's controversy over this. Even the Brit HaChadashah was written in Koine Greek. And you have some people talking about, well, it was originally written in Aramaic. There's the controversy over that. So I tend to try to get people to understand, go back into the original language, go back into the definitions of the words, and also understand that within a culture, there's language, slang, idioms, and euphemisms. And a lot of people don't realize when they're even learning biblical Greek. I even had to go through and see that there are sometimes words or phrases that are not to be taken literally. Within this language, the culture is being provided to you, where there's idioms, where the phrases are not to be taken literally, and there's euphemisms, which are words that are used because they have a slightly softer tone rather than the harsher original word. So it's very pertinent and significant for people to actually come to this text as a child and unlearn to relearn and try to actually slash or flush down the toilet your preconceived bias, worldview, opinion, and notion. That's what I'll say to that first.
Now, that what you said right there is so important. That unlearn to relearn. You got to expound on that. You got to give me some more, because that's something that I've talked about. But sometimes people get used to hearing a certain voice say a certain thing. They might not hear it. So I want you to talk about it, because that is an important concept to me personally that I still find myself practicing. So this unlearn to relearn, especially when it comes to these languages.
Yeah, especially when we get to a translation of a word that we in our society have placed a norm on, as when we see it, we definitely automatically shoot to that one definition. And we can't hold to any other definition at all. Or we go to a word in the Hebrew or the Greek, we find out the actual definition of it, and we see that it goes against our pet doctrine or paradigm or dogma, and we kind of dismiss it. We throw it away. And what I mean, unlearn to relearn, you're going to have to actually be honest with yourself and say, am I actually being led by the Spirit to be convicted of things? Because being convicted means you're going to actually get into things that you don't like. Like with the eating pork. I used to tear up some Joe's Crab Shack, and And I tell people it was difficult giving that up, and because it was good. It was difficult giving pork up because it was good. But I had to unlearn to relearn. Even though I might not have liked giving up that thing, I definitely was convicted because I saw a bigger picture in what I needed to grasp. Just because I didn't like something don't mean I had to actually try to redefine it. So that's what I mean in a short sense.
Now that right there, what you just said, you just hurt a whole lot of folks' feelings,
I did.
Because
I know. I did.
Because I have a mixed audience. So we got an Israelite audience, we have Christians that listen to traditional, and some folks haven't given up, the crab shack and pork yet. And I don't really harp on it,
Me neither. I don't.
Because I don't look at it as being a salvation or salvific issue, but I do try to point out, I think there's a common sense to it, that if the Most High put it in the scripture, let's find out why.
Right.
Then you start to do the research, you'd be like, uh-oh. And so that brings up another point. Because in what you were saying, it means that the culture or understanding the language ties you directly to understanding the culture.
Absolutely.
And that now brings a different understanding that goes beyond just simply defining a word by its base definition, but now what was its cultural application? And then it goes from the word to the sentence to the phrase to the entire passage of scripture.
That's right.
So how now do I go from this word and expand now, and how do I now infuse that into my culture today when I'm looking at ancient documents that were from a culture that we've been so far removed from?
You said how? How do you do that?
How do I do that? And then I guess a piggyback question with that is, why is that relevant or necessary? Because the question's gonna be asked, well, we don't need to do that no more. Why worry about that? But we say the Bible is timeless. So if the scriptures are timeless, then shouldn't the principles be timeless too, regardless of the culture?
Yeah. Okay. To that point, I'll say this. Back in junior high and high school, you had English you had English composition where you learned comprehension. You learned about what was the author's intent, and this love story, it was not written directly to us living today. However, it may have been written for us. We can actually adhere to some of these principles, right? This was written to a people who, let's just start with the Exodus. The Exodus happened, the year is either 1446 or 1445 BC. So when you understand this text was written to a people who got a nationality in 1446 BC or before BCE or before Common Era, right? And they were over in the eastern part of the land, the eastern part of the planet, I would say, the eastern part of the planet. So understand the eastern part of the planet, they may have a different vernacular, they may have different social structure, they may have different political structure, right? They may have different verbiage, like I said, they use. Understanding this was written in a different time frame to a people who understood things in their time frame.
Right.
And understanding that first, you look at the author's intent. This book is, we tend to take this book as like, this is about us, like in a sense, but not first to us. This was not first to us. This was first to this people that we would call our ancestors, pretty much, right? So I would say we have to be willing to rip off or tear off or strip off or actually like the scripture says, we are clay.
I like that.
Remind yourself that you're clay and that you can be broken down. Be broken down so you can be built back up into saying, hey, these are people who are in the eastern part of the planet. They're over in northeast Africa. modern day Turkey, modern day Iraq, and Iran, right? And got their nationality 1446 or 1445 BC. So things happening in that climate, in that time frame, in that geographical location are different than what we have over here in America. And even over here in America, I tell people such as, my peers or, us folk, right? Camera, us folk.
Right.
I tell us folk, well, we are the descendants, well, most of us, right? If you're not an immigrant, you're a descendant of a slave. And the slaves came over in the slave ships and they were stripped of everything. They are stripped of their language. They are stripped of their deity. They are stripped of their diet. They are stripped of their clothing. And they are assimilated into another culture. And so when you're willing to understand somebody has stripped our ancestors and assimilated our ancestors into another culture, well, then you pretty much would be objectively open to say, okay, what possibly what did they have before? Or there was possibly something going on there before with a different culture they were familiar with when they came over. So, I mean, hopefully I'm answering the question, but it's just about if you're willing to follow the spirit and be convicted of words in here, understand they have different meanings over in the eastern part of the planet as opposed to over here in America. Like, for example, like I'll give you a gist and then I'll end. When I go on Sister E's channel, we're going to talk about the word head.
Okay.
Because when we see the word head in the text, especially the New Testament, we as Americans automatically skip to one meaning. We forget that it's a body part that's at the top of our body. We actually skip that meaning first. We skip that meaning first, and then we go over to something else. Well, then there's also the controversy, which I'm going to talk about, is, well, did head mean in the New Testament times, the first century CE, or did head mean in first century Common Era what we take it to mean in 2021 CE? Do they mean the same thing? And we're going to talk about those things. And that's what I see a lot going on, wrestling with the text, or even taking something out of context. Like when we say pledge or oath, like I was but I got kind of in a spat with, I won't say the brother's name, but the brother did take something out of context. He said, anybody who pledges something, like I'm a federal government worker. I pledged to uphold the Constitution.
Right.
And I was accused of breaking Torah.
Oh, wow.
I laughed because I was like, okay, I can easily go into the book, chapter, and verse that they went into, and I can tell that they were taking the whole thing out of context because of one missed word, because of a translation. When you read about pledges and oaths, there's different aspects of pledges and oaths. And anytime you're making a pledge or an oath, you're not making a pledge or an oath to a deity. That's what some people just don't realize. So we have taken this book and just, I don't know. We like I said, we've taken our preconceived worldview bias. We've taken our overzealousness for the Most High in this walk. And we've, like you said, we've eisegeted it into the text, we've interpolated it into the text, and we just butchered it. So, but that's why I got into the language, to learn for myself. I don't get into it to argue, debate, or anything like that. When somebody accuses me of something, I just laugh. But that's my spiel.
See, that's why you're a problem. See, you want to talking like that to us men's folks. Where your doily at? You supposed to have your head covered. Girl, you can't talk to us like that. Go get your husband. You need to be learning from your husband. Who you think you are? You better get in there and cook some kosher bacon.
I get it all the time, and I just
you just a woman's. Someone can't even say women right. You're a woman's. A woman's with a
woman's
right.
Yep.
You know, my sister Yvette said, take your pants
off.
You know, and this is a good point too, Brother Charles. My cousin said the culture helped you understand how our ancestors
navigated through
our daily lives. And that's
right.
a good point, because that's where the language comes into play.
Yep.
And so I love it. Was something you had said earlier too that made me think about, you know, how intrinsic language and culture are to one another. Because, and I feel like this is the learning or understanding the language properly. And let me stress the word properly. Helps us get to learning the culture properly. Because one of the things that I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen this, I know you're very studious. You had to have known there's a lot of so-called mores faking it and ain't making it about, you know, about how well or knowledgeable they are about the Hebrew, and what I hear is the Negro and not a lot of Hebrew. So, you know, and I'll be listening because I've said openly, I said I'm not fluent in anything. You know, I'm barely fluent in English. So, but I do have a pretty fluent understanding.
Right.
When I hear. So my hearing is very fluent. You know, even my vernacular, or ability to articulate is not. What my hearing is. And so I'm hearing a lot of different things, and so that brings to mind this, my next question.
Okay.
Is, because you made the point about us in putting our Western understanding. And my brother Elephant Man, who's in the chat with us, he had made a good point about we're so westernized, basically we really don't understand how westernized we are.
Yep.
And so now in a rejection or rebellion, whatever word people want to use of the Western culture, for which we've been, captured by through our beginning with our ancestors onto now, and people trying to return back to the culture of our ancestors. I think that there's a danger or risk, which I've seen, of people going too far. And so now they're doing the things that the gospel is supposed to liberate us from, and imposing yokes on people by these bad translations, bad interpretations, these eisegesis of the text. I want them to do exegesis, or like an old woman used to say in my church who couldn't say exegesis. She said, "Do that extra Jesus."
Right, that needs some extra Jesus. Oh man!
More Yeshua, So in making that point, how does the connection between language and culture, all right, is the language the thing that bridges the gap between us and the culture?
No.
Okay.
I would say no, because of this. There are many people who read and speak this biblical Hebrew fluently, right? More fluent. I don't think I'm that fluent. I think I'm good enough to go through it, right? A little bit, right? I need my lexicon at times. I definitely do. So with that being said, I wouldn't say the language is the bridge, but it helps. But it's not the bridge, because you still have all these people who do know a little bit of Hebrew or fluent, right? We still have different understandings. We still have like denominational sect understanding. And let me say this, because there's a sect of the Pharisees, there's the sect of the Sadducees, there's the sect of the Essenes, and then you get to Christian denominations. Or you get to, not even before that, you get to Orthodox Jews, you get to ultra Orthodox views, and they all know how to read biblical Hebrew, right? But they come to various different conclusions about the interpretation of what this commandment or statute or ordinance means, right? So I've seen it. I've seen like fluent biblical Hebrew readers, right? I, for one, think Genesis 1, 2, and 3 is one whole narrative. It's a story, right? I think it's one whole story. And I believe there's one male and female pair Adam created, the male and female human being, which is Adam. I believe Genesis 1 is not Adam. And then I don't believe Genesis 2 was a different creation of human beings. Some Hebrew speakers believe that. They believe Genesis 1 is a set of human beings and Genesis 2 is a different set of human beings. But we're fluent readers. And so that's why I said it's not the bridging the gap, because also you have fluent, watch this, you have fluent biblical Hebrew readers and speakers. Some believe that Yeshua or Jesus is the Christ or Mashiach. Some don't believe that Yeshua or Jesus is the Mashiach. We read this fluently. And this is what the rabbis, the Orthodox, the ultra Orthodox have been arguing for 2,000 years, right? So, but the language is very important to learn still. Don't get deterred because of that. However, the language is very important to learn still. Why? Because you can cut out a middleman who's actually trying to get you indoctrinated into looking at the text their way instead of asking the spirit to convey the meaning to you directly from the text.
Now, that right there, girl, I should have gave you some organ. Girl, hit that up.
I needed the E flat.
That right there was powerful. Especially that last statement. It's the spirit. And it sounds like it's not so much connecting us to a natural culture as much as it's connected to a culture of faith that the scriptures are actually trying to bring out.
Absolutely.
That makes every bit of sense right there. And so that right there is that was good. That was good. I enjoyed listening to you say. We both got that old Baptist background, so we got to get that one down. We went from the Baptist to the Pentecostal to now we the Hebrew Israelite understanding with all of that. So okay, so that's powerful, and that makes sense because, like you say, a lot of people are interpreting the text, even if they're reading Hebrew, they're still interpreting the text wrong. And so,
I can't say wrong, just from their sect or denomination.
Okay. So interpreting it differently from their particular, whether it be denominational view or dogma, whatever the case may be. Okay, so all right. So then, and that's that lets me know too that I wasn't a complete buffoon when I titled this "Language, Linguistics, Translation and Transliteration." Because that's what we're talking about. Because all of that leads to interpretation.
Absolutely.
And based on our understanding of those four things, language, linguistics, translation, and transliteration, can have an impact on our interpretation, of scripture as a whole. Because one of the things too that I have seen, oftentimes is people talk about this whole concept or idea of a pure language based on what they've read from a few scriptures. And the thing about it is, I think when I read the scriptures that talk about these things, what I think is missing is people are forgetting, no matter what language is spoken, it's the understanding that makes the difference.
Absolutely.
He never said in all thy getting, get languages.
Mm.
He said get an understanding.
Right.
And so what you said earlier, because I see a lot of people, like I'll see people teaching online, because I do it myself. You know, we pull up a word in Hebrew or Greek or Aramaic or whatever the case may be, and then we try to go. Now, what I try to do, and you've seen what I've tried to do. I try to go through, not just directly to the definition that I want people to see, but I try to go through the definitions for the word in its entirety, and then try to do the exercise of, now let's find out which definition fits in the context. Because the context has everything to do with the interpretation, because if it didn't, we wouldn't have so many different doctrines and dogmas or perspectives and views. And so now, is there ever a time, let me say this, where we can have two different views on a particular passage that aren't necessarily opposing views, but they're both actually right, but it depends on the application for a particular scripture? Or is it always just one way, and then that's the only way? Because that's how I see a lot of people interpret scripture. There's only one way to see this, and that's it. And then you have the other camp that says, well, no, when it comes to prophecy in particular, there's dual fulfillment.
Okay, I do see dual fulfillment in a couple of things. But what you're talking about is semantic range.
Okay.
A word can have various meanings when you come to different verses. Like you and I were talking the other day. Simple word, dabar. Dabar, dalit bet resh, right? In its cal form, or the basic verb conjugation form, when it's in its basic state of form, right? It means word, dabar, word. Other times when you're reading that dalit bet resh, it can mean matter, or it can mean thing. Or when you conjugate the verb dabar, like in its PL sense, PL means like an intensive active form. So I take the same letters, dalit, bet, resh, right? And if I say deber, that means he spoke, right? And if I say debre, which is actually adding a yod at the end of dalit bet resh, I'm adding a yod at the end. That's the construct, and it means words of. So if I say debre, it means words of. So every time you see the word dalit bet resh, depending on the conjugation, or depending on the context, it can mean word, matter, event, or thing, or it can mean spoke or speaking, or like speaks. It can mean speaking or words of. And a lot of times in a narrative, when you're reading in the Hebrew, in the narrative, a beginning of a verse, when it's continuing a narrative, like we would translate it, and he spoke, right? Or and he spoke. We would say why daber, right? If we say why daber, when I say why, I'm saying the consonants of wa and yod. Then I'm saying dalit bet resh. So wa is that conjunction, which means and then the yod is a prefix meaning he, like third person he, he, right? So when I say why, that means and he. And when I say deber, why daber, and he spoke. So that's just a little bit of that.
Now, see, that's interesting, because I was doing a teaching with some other ministers, and we were talking about some of what you said. And I was saying there's a difference between looking at your King James version of the Bible or your English translation, and then extracting one word from the Strong's versus actually interpreting or translating, rather, not interpreting, but translating or transliterating the text so you can actually hear what it would sound like spoken by the audience. Because when people use their interlinear Bibles, like one of the students has said, well, I don't, this don't, but I seen this I went to Strong's and and I went to Thayer, but when I went to the interlinear Bible, it's not spelled like that. And I had to explain to them, and that's because if you're, because now you're moving into a higher level, I feel, or an advanced level of study. Because now you start to realize that if you only try to translate based on what you see the English equivalent is word for word, and you don't understand the language, you don't understand how the word is used in the context. And like you were just saying, the base word is the bar, but then it goes into the bear, the gray, and so now where I would see this in my KJV, ESV, or whatever the English translation I'm using, and I just go, well, Strong's number 5701, means this. And I don't give the context for the passage, I could be misinforming the students.
Yeah. I'm gonna add like grammar. Like you cannot learn grammar from a dictionary. You can't learn grammar from a concordance, and you can't learn grammar from a lexicon. The Strong's Concordance, especially not the Strong's exhaustive concordance, let me say, but just a regular concordance, it just gives you the amount of times a word in the text was translated as this word or this passage or this phrase. Say, hey, in the Hifil, it means this, or Hifil means causative form. In the Nifal or reflexive form or passive form, it means this. When you learn grammar, all these words that I'm talking about, like they're called the binyan or building blocks, right? The binyan means building blocks, and you start off with like what a base word is. A base word is called a root or a shoresh. A base word is called a root or a shoresh, right? And a base word can start off with basically like either 2 consonants, 3 consonants, or 4 consonants, right? And then as you either put prefix, when you put prefix letters on the beginning of a word, or you put consonants on the end of a word to give it a possessive suffix, or when you're distinguishing plural from singular, that stuff matters. So building blocks of the binyan, you build especially when it's a verb of action, right? So when you're dealing with action words or verb words, you're definitely having to build. So you need to know if he is doing something or she is doing something or something's being done to it, or or is this they doing that, or is it them doing it, or is something theirs, or is something mine, or is something is an action already completed, or is an action already done in the future. So me talking about the binyan, you have your cow, that's your base form. Then you have your nifal, then you have your PL, then you have your pual, then you have your hifil, then your hofal, then you have your heat pael. Those are different conjugations or different pronunciations, so that you can see which type of action is going on and who's doing the action. So a lot of that is pertinent. Grammar. A lot of people don't know there's grammar in the language. So yeah, go ahead.
That right there is important. The difference between grammar versus just the actual word.
Right.
And something that I've noticed that I'm sure you've seen.
Oh.
And that is that there is a lot of slang in scripture.
Oh yeah.
And I think that one of the mistakes that people make when translating or transliterating scripture is trying to make it sound as if Yeshua in particular and the disciples didn't speak slang, but
Oh,
that
they did speak
everything they
slang.
said was like they were speaking in a proper, you know, the Sadidi, ta-ta-ta accents, like, they were, drinking communion with their pinky out and going, hip, hip, who shall betray thee? Where is he? And Judas is like, is it I? Quickly, go and do what thou wilt.
Yeah,
Like they didn't
right,
talk like
right,
that.
right. Oh
And
my
like,
gosh.
it.
They talk like you and I of their Eastern vernacular. That's pretty
Right,
much how they talk. There's a
right.
lot of slang, idiom, and euphemism in the languages, both Hebrew and both Greek, and that's where we go awry sometimes. Like I did a lesson on polygyny. Let me say this real quick. I did a lesson on polygyny, and a lot of people take that phrase literally in what is it, Leviticus 18, like you shall not take your sister, you shall not add another. What is it? I paraphrase.
We can pull it up.
Yeah, just read it real quick.
All right, you said Leviticus 18. So let's go to it.
I think it's 18 and 22.
All right, so we'll go ahead and pull it up.
I know the Hebrew phrase, so yeah. Let me see. Let me pull it up here in my book while I'm looking at it. It was Leviticus 18 and 22. So
I put it up there on the screen for you. I think now this is the one that talk about laying with mankind, but I know the one you got is somewhere.
So it's where it is that it? Leviticus 18 and 22?
18.
Or is it yep. Let me see. Hold on. Okay, there it goes. Yeah, 18. Isha el achota lo tekak lisror lena legalot ervata aleja bechayecha. Okay, so when it says the phrase Isha el achota lo tekak, not shall you take lisror in addition to in addition to or as a rival. When it says Isha elakota, a wife to her sister, right? Okay. Isha elakota. I did a lesson on that says pretty much that's an idiomatic phrase. Because when you look at that phrase in the feminine, in like when the father is telling the children of Israel to build the temple, he's talking about especially the rings, when talking about the rings for the curtains, or either the cherubim, the cherubim that sit on top of the throne seat or the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. That phrase is used as well, Isha el Akota. So the phrase actually, when you look at it, it's like one to another. So you shall not take one woman to another. So people look at this translation and say, oh, sister. Just because it says literal sister here, it may not mean literal sister. It just when it's in a phrase, because also there's a masculine phrase, ish elakiv. When the people saw the manna, they said one to another. When the people saw the manna, they said one to another, ish elakiv. So literally, it would say a brother to it would say a man to his brother, but they were all saying it, men and women, one to another. Okay. So people say here in Leviticus 18, they'll say, okay, as long as I don't have a sister, as long as I don't take another woman that's her actual sister, I'm good. But you know, in the story of what is it, Hannah in 1 Samuel, the same word used for rival there. The same word used for rival there. What's her name? Paniah or something.
1 Samuel chapter
First
1,
Samuel
right?
chapter 1. Yeah, the her name starts with the pay. The rival wife was her name start with a pay. She was not actually the sister, Penina. There you go, Penina. She was not the actual sister, but she was known as the rival wife to Hannah.
Right, right. Okay, I got you.
So that Isha Elakota, I looked and looked, and I can always be talked about with to this, say, hey Shanti, I don't know if you're making any sense there. You can actually converse with me. I'm able to look at things objectively from a different perspective. What I've seen so far is that phrase is maybe not literal, but more so idiom.
Mm,
Isha Elakota, one to another, because of the way it's used when building the rings for the curtains, and the way it's the Most High is talking about the cherubim are facing Isha Elakota, one to another. So
mm.
it's kind of wild. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Now that okay. Now that is very interesting, and that
Hmm.
goes back to again, that point about grammar
Hmm.
and not just taking it, word, just simply by the word, so to speak, you know. And so, I got there's a few questions we got in the chat,
Sure.
and one here is from Brother Sadek bin Israel, and it's a good question, and he wants to know, is the Hebrew spoken by us today the same Hebrew invented by Eleazar ben Yehuda? And is this the same as in biblical times?
I would say I don't absolutely know, because Moses Moses and them didn't have a YouTube. They didn't have a cassette recorder. They didn't have a CD recorder. I can't go back and say, I can't say this is absolutely what they've spoken. I do believe that the the priests or the Levites actually kept a hold of what they needed to, as far as what they could, during the time of Babylonian captivity, because they were still somehow doing liturgical services and actually speaking the language. As far as I know, as I've researched, um, what the Masoretes have done is like preserved. They preserved what they believe has been carried on with the pronunciation. So with the Masoretes, they went ahead and put symbols to what they preserved, as far as what they believe was spoken. And what I mean by symbols is like, the vowel points. People say, okay, well, since there's no actual picture to represent an A, an E, an I, an O, and a U in biblical Hebrew, they believe that no vowels exist. However, you can't make a sound without a consonant and a vowel. A consonant and a vowel equals a sound, and that's syllabification. So the Masoretes actually, to preserve what they believe would be an ah or an eh or an ich or an o or an u, right? They actually came up with these symbols to preserve those sounds. Over in the land of Israel, I think uh, Moray David was saying, by the time the children are in the third grade, they don't read with the vowel points anymore, because they can speak the language. They see the actual, they see the syntax remaining the same for certain phrases, sentences, and words. So with that being said, I don't know. I do understand that during third and second century BCE, when after Babylonian captivity, the children of Israel, especially like the southern tribe, and when they were taken over by Antiochus Epiphanes. I'm getting the next answer. Antiochus Epiphanes. A lot of people, a lot of Jews, and when I say Jews, I mean the people who lived in Judea. That's what Jew became to mean um, during the first century CE. Jew became to mean short for Judea, those who lived in Judea and actually followed or believed in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Some of the Jews start speaking Greek. That was the common language, and that's why you have some of the 70 elders actually translating the Tanakh, the Torah, Navi'im, and Ketuvim into Greek, which is the Septuagint, right? So that's where you get LXX from, because LXX means 70, right? And that stood for the 70 elders who actually understood Hebrew still, and also understood the Greek and translated the Hebrew Bible into Greek. And there was still Aramaic, being spoken as well. So during that time, during first century CE. So I don't know if I can't say absolutely what we're speaking today is the absolute that Moses spoke or Abraham spoke, because I don't have a recording of them. I don't have a recording. However, what we have retained or from the liturgical services, and then the Masoretes helping to symbolize the vowels and sounds made in those liturgical services, I think we have a good grasp. I will say this lastly: a lot of what you hear me speaking, like somehow this stuff, somehow we had to have a little bit of something right, because guess what? No, I don't hear too many people arguing that we're saying Elohim wrong. Aleph, Lam, Lit, Yod, Hey, Mem. Nobody's saying we say Elohim wrong. Well, how do we know it's Elohim? Some people say Allahim. But you know what I can do? I can go into a grammar book and I can go to my teachers. I call all of them my teachers. I can go to all of them, and guess what? They actually say the same thing with the pronunciation. We all come to the same conclusion about, especially Elohim. Now, the name, we might not come to the same conclusion, but I can talk about why I say Yod Hey Wah Hey the way I do later, if Mr. Blacktastic wants me to. But that's my answer to that.
Yeah, go ahead, girl. Do it. Do it, because
okay. Well, in a short sense, I say Yahweh. Yod Hey Wah Hey, I pronounce it as Yahweh, and that's because the shoresh, or the root, is Hey Yod Hey, Hayah, right? Hayah, Hey Yod Hey, Hayah. And then when you get into, like I said, when you get into the binyan and you get into the verb conjugation, you actually pronounce the verbs differently to show what's going on with a particular action. So when you put a yod in front of Hey Yod Hey, it actually becomes, that yod becomes that wah, right? So Yod Hey Wah Hey. So when you have a yod prefix, right, that means he, or he will. It means he will, right? If you have a tav in front of something, it's like she will. If you have an aleph in front of something, it's I will. Those are your prefix letters. So if you had, say, for example, Hey Wah Hey, like in Exodus 3, and you have the aleph in front of it, right? It would be Ehyeh, I will be. That's I will be.
Okay.
Right?
So when he says, so we talking about when he says to
Moses,
I am that I am, right?
Yeah, I am that I am. There's not necessarily a word am in Hebrew. But saying I am is okay, or it's just I. Sometimes just I. So Ehyeh, so Aleph, Hey Yod Hey, Ehyeh. That's I will be. If you say Yod Hey Wah Hey, I say Yahweh, and that's because it's a third person, meaning he who causes to exist. So the root word would be Hey Yod Hey, right? And you actually have I can show you a verb chart. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Let me see what page this is on. Let me show you the verb chart. This would be easier to explain. Let me see where it's at.
Like I said, this is just number one. So you got a lot more of these to do. So we gonna let you wear out, not rust out. You know what I mean?
Hey, I am not tripping.
The Most High uses you, we gonna use
at all. Okay. Okay, so let me share my screen here.
All right.
6.
Just let me know.
Where is it at? Right here.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna allow that.
Because I'm gonna get to some of these questions that I see coming up in the chat and let you answer those before you close it out. And listen, everybody. Whatever questions you have that we may not get to, don't worry. She's coming back. We're gonna get to your questions. Okay, we're gonna get to your questions.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so I'm gonna share screen. I'm gonna share screen too.
I want to say this. For anyone who wants to donate to the broadcast for the ministry tonight, all donations will go directly to Sister Ashanti. All right. And sister, do you have a Cash App in case they want to send you donations directly?
Yeah. You want me to put it in the chat, or I'll say it for you?
You can put it in the chat.
Let me see.
There, E, check your inbox, girl. All right. Boom, church, my brother.
I'll put it in the chat. Shalom. Okay, let me share this.
Monday as well. Sister E, check your messages right now. All right. All right.
Go ahead. So so I'm sharing my screen, right? Okay, cool. All right.
And while we got you sharing your screen, we got this invader here.
Who's that?
Hey, Shanti!
Who that?
Sister E.
Shalom, Sister E. What's happening? I was pulling up this page here. How you doing?
Oh, good.
Good to hear from you.
Somebody been talking about me. I felt it. I said,
he did talk about you earlier.
Y'all tune in next week for my show on Sister E called Rumors, Lies, and More's Tea.
That's funny.
Oh, and I'm gonna be on there acting up. That's all he's trying to do.
Right. We know it. We know it.
Y'all know me. What's going on, family? What's up? What's the deal?
She said, "What's the dealio?"
It's been a long week. I just got off the plantation 2 hours ago. So
just got off the plantation. They stopped cracking that whip. I'm telling you.
They've been cracking it all week. I'm back though.
Well, E, we have been learning a lot here on tonight. And we got some good questions coming up too from the chat. And then we talked about she's going to be with you on your platform. And so now, Sister Ashanti, the chart that you just showed.
Yeah, I got to get it back cracking because it was like my computer was acting a fool. But go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So
I'll say, ask me questions though. Go ahead.
Yeah. You're going to be on with Sister E on this month of October also, and you all are going to be discussing a different topic, which is going to be, I think, also outstanding. So we're going to support you. I told you, sis, we're going to wear you out, not let you rust out. You ain't going to sit on the sideline. We're going to throw you in the game and put the ball in your hand. You got to take the shot. Right, so.
That's my buddy.
No problem. No problem.
Now, earlier, we were talking about how much slang there is in the Bible that people tend to forget because people tend to think that Yeshua and the apostles or Moses and the rest of them were speaking, proper, whatever they forget, just like they talk like we do today, but in their own language, especially being that they're from Galilee, where their speech was easily identifiable by other Jews who were in Judea. And here's a good example of that Brother Charles brings up, how in Samson, do you remember this particular phrase where it said, if you hadn't plowed, when Samson told the folks when they found out the language he was riddled, Samson, it almost sounds like he's speaking slang when he basically says, if you haven't plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't have known my riddles. Would this be an example of what we were talking about, the slang or the casual manner in which they actually spoke to each other on a regular basis in the scriptures?
Oh, you could say that. You could say that.
I'm just thinking to myself, like when I think of Samson, I have my own embellishment of what he was like.
I have my own embellishment.
Soul glow. He was probably mad, so the Bible may have actually cleaned it up. in the recording of what he actually said to them, you know. But would this be an example?
Let me see. Are you showing something right here? You said what?
Let me see here. Let me see if we can find that.
Okay, Samson, if you haven't plowed with my heifer, for example. Okay, go ahead and pull up the whole scripture.
Okay, let's pull up that scripture.
I was trying. I gotta send myself the picture of what I was going to show you with the verb chart, because this particular book that I'm pulling up doesn't have that particular chart that I need. So
okay, because I think that a lot of folks in the Bible probably spoke the same way that we be talking. See how I'm talking? I think they spoke the way that we talk today on a regular basis. But I think we have made people in the scriptures almost so impersonable that we don't think that they're like us.
Right. We got to understand that they are people too.
And so here's the verse here, verse 18, Judges chapter 14, verse 18. It's got the ESV on the left side and the King James version on the right side.
Okay.
And so kind of give us an overview of, would this be an example of, he's speaking, because I would think that this is a very intense exchange, so it wouldn't be so formal. So would this be an example of an informal conversation where it's more slang probably being used here than anything else?
Yeah, I would say yes.
Okay. So they back there using heifer and all this other stuff. Like,
y'all funny, man.
Or whatever the equivalent is in their day. Basically, okay. So that was the example that I was looking at, because I was like, this is kind of interesting. Now, here's another question that's asked from the chat. Go ahead. Our brother Sadek bin Israel, he asked, "What is Lashon Kadash or Kadesh?"
A bunch of hogwash. That's what it is.
Okay.
It is a bunch of hogwash. There is more than one class of vowel in Hebrew. So in English, we have A, E, I, O, and U, right? Same thing with Hebrew or biblical Hebrew. I have to talk about, because biblical Hebrew is different from Israeli Hebrew, but they do actually use the same sounds, right? But there is in Hebrew, ah, eh, I, o, u. Ah, eh, I, o, u. And we also have what you call matres lecciones, where the wa is sometimes used as the o, and then you have the yod sometimes used as the I. And you see a lot of the matres lecciones in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So yes, and actually, like, there are certain words in the Hebrew that are spelled exactly the same way, and you won't know they're different words unless you pronounce them differently. And that goes back to what I was talking about with the word dabar. Let's just keep it simple. When I said dabar, it means word. When I said devbarim, I'm adding a yod and a mem sophie to make it plural, right? That's different pronunciation. When I say deber, he spoke. So how come people can't realize, like, if you say debar over and over again, how are you going to distinguish between word and words? How are you going to distinguish between spoke and he spoke, or things of that nature, right? So I always tell people, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind.
Right. So we have to think of the way they spoke. So in other words, don't make the languages so alien that we make it as if, they spoke unlike we do today. They spoke like we do today, but a different language. So it's important to understand the grammar and not just the word. Correct?
Right. Okay. Absolutely. So I have the picture of the chart I want to show you now.
Okay, all right.
About why I use the pronunciation. So let's move this over here, and then Well, let me share the screen first. Let me hit share. Share the screen. Allow. Screen 2. Allow. All right. So am I sharing the screen? Let me see.
Yep, it should be coming up right now. There we go.
Okay. So this is what you call a Hiphil. A Hiphil means a word in its causative form. Something's being caused to be done, or you're doing something to or for yourself, or you're doing something to or for one another, right? So when I'm looking at a Hiphil word, it means a word is weak when it actually ends like this right here, number 3. That means third root radical, and then this letter right here, the consonant is hey. So a three consonant root word that ends in hey, right? So that means third root radical hey. That means it's a weak. It's classified as a weak word. It's not really weak, meaning it's it's like gutturals. Gutturals like come from the gut.
Right.
So remember when I was saying hey yod hey, when you conjugate it, it actually is hey wah hey, and you add that yod, right? But when I said Yahweh, I pronounce the word Yahweh as I do because it's classed as a third hey verb because it ends in a hey, right? It would be imperfect. It would be imperfect third person masculine singular. See, I think you can see the arrow. So this is third person masculine singular right here. This word right here is tagle. That would be your third person feminine singular. And again, tagle and this and context would have to distinguish between these two words, right? But this is third feminine singular, and then this right here is second person masculine singular. Second person masculine singular, and this will be second person feminine singular, and this will be first person common singular right there. So agle, tagli, and yagle. Right, so the root word for this is gala. Gala means to uncover or to exile. Right, gala means to uncover or to exile.
So even when as similar as all these words may look in Hebrew language, there are nuances that make each of them different and distinct in their own way.
Absolutely.
So the grammar is important because that's what gives you the context to know what the word exactly is being said, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So now we going beyond just simply understanding the word or the root word, so to speak, or the base word in its simple definition. Now you're understanding the entire phrase or passage that as the word is being used right in line with the thought being expressed, correct?
Right. So here when you say higle, there's a difference between higla. You see the root gimel lamet hey is the same, right? But you see the prefixes giving something different, right? That lets you know it's a hifid. So third root radical hey verb. Perfect. Hifil, third person masculine singular. So higla, and then higleta would be third person feminine singular. But you see the root or the shoresh is still in there. You see the gimel, the lamet, and then for the feminine, you always have that ta there, right?
Okay. So kind of like and I hope we're not losing some of the audience, but I'm a little familiar with some of the language. So it's kind of like when we're speaking like maybe like a Spanish or a French or something, how you have the feminine and you have the masculine pronunciations of certain words.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
So Hebrew has those rules.
Yes. Hebrew has those rules. And so when I'm saying yod hey wah hey, I'll pronounce it as a third hey verb in the hifil week. So if I say higla, that means he caused to uncover or he caused to exile. If I said yagle, that means he will cause to uncover, or he will cause to exile. You see the difference between something completed and something in the future. So that's perfect versus imperfect, right?
Now this brings another question to mind. I gotta ask this question. Then we got a couple questions I'm gonna get to in the chat, but I gotta ask this question. With the way you just broke that down, why is there such a big hang up in the Israelite community with a bunch of folks who can't speak the language fluently about how to say the Most High's name? Because folks can't make up their mind on whether or not they want to say Yah. Because I say Yahweh too. You know, Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahuwah, Ahia. You know, when it comes to Yeshua, it's, you get Yeshua, Yahashua, Yahweh Shai, Yahusha. Does any of that matter? Because everybody claims that their translation, transliteration, or understanding is perfect. However, most of the people doing all the arguing can't speak the language fluently, don't know, like you just said, they don't know what Moses actually spoke, and things. And then, like, Charles had made a good point. He said that languages do change over time.
Absolutely. So etymology.
Right. So if you look at even the division of time between Moses to David to Yeshua, we go from Abraham to Moses to David to Yeshua. There may have been, because we're now talking about several centuries and into millennia, there were several, centuries that separated them. So by the time you get to the next, iteration of the Hebrew culture, there may have been some changes to the language already. And then plus we have all the captivity and different things that happen. And so the idea, again, back to what a question I asked you earlier, of this pure tongue, because we have mores teaching you can't say God, you can't say Jesus, you can't say any, they will condemn you almost to hell or kick you out of Israel, and they have hours of teachings of this. Some people that wrote books of how you can't say this, that, and the other. But then when you ask them, well, can you speak the language fluently? They get mad.
Of course,
speak it fluently. So how do you help me with this, sis? I'm getting frustrated just asking the question.
I know. That's actually one of the reasons I got into learning Hebrew, is because the argument over the pronunciation over the name. And I don't get into arguments, but I'm able to explain why I use such pronunciation, right? I'm actually following a grammar rule. And to actually get to Zedek ben Israel's question, those verb stems, to get to that lesson, it takes months. It takes months. I studied for sometimes 1 to 2 hours a day in the beginning, for at no less than 3 or 4 days a week. And all I did was kept writing the letters and just kept writing the nukudot, or the vowel points, right? I just kept writing and writing. But people don't want to spend the time. They want to hurry up and teach. They don't want to spend the time it takes to learn that, because like I said, it takes months to get to the verbs. You have to learn the alphabet first, then you learn pretty much the vowel points, then you learn syllabification, then you learn nouns, then you learn adjectives, then you learn the conjunction wa, then you learn syntax or construct, then you learn numbers, then you get into the verbs. But you're building all of this stuff and trying to retain it, learning all those nouns, those adjectives and everything. That stuff, it's mind-boggling. People don't want to spend the time. They want to just hurry up and teach. They want to hurry up and start teaching lessons, right? And don't want to understand difference between translation versus transliteration. A lot of the whole argument that people say, well, you can't say God, Lord, and Jesus because what is it? Exodus 23. There's the verse in there where it says, don't make mention of any other name. Well, when we look at the word mention, and this goes back to what I said about translation, sometimes the KJV is not all that bad. Sometimes it just helps to go back and learn how to use the tools. So when you go back and look at the actual Hebrew word they use for mention, it's actually saying don't let It's pretty much saying don't let the thought come into your mind to the point where you want to start giving honor and homage or worship to another deity. Saying another deity's name, that's not what the verse is actually saying. And I could say that with surety. Like there are some things I can say with surety. There's some things I cannot say with surety. There's some things I'll say I absolutely don't know, and or I can't explain it absolutely. But I can definitely tell you when it's saying don't make mention, the Hebrew word there is not it's not meaning you can't vocalize a deity's name. It's meaning don't let it come to your mind where you're actually getting it into your heart, your mind, where you're actually wanting to treat that deity like your deity, the Most High, Yah.
So there'd be this scripture right here, Exodus 23 and 13, right?
Okay, there you go, 23 and 13. Let me get to it. Yeah, yep.
So I got it on the screen. All right.
It's Exodus 23 and 13. Because there's some arguments over this. Like, people still argue with me to this day over the pronunciation. But so Exodus 23 and 13?
Right. Because that word there mentioned is the word zakar, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have anything to do with, like you said, people talking about, oh, you can't, say his name any other way. And my thing would be, well, first of all, we all come out of or have descended now from those who were brought into captivity. None of us are first language Hebrew speakers.
Right.
So it's like you're basically putting a yoke on the people and saying, well, you basically can't say his name at all unless you know how to say it properly. But then nobody can agree on how to say it properly, which now it kind of makes me understand why a lot of Jews just say Hashem.
Right. And I don't got no problem with that either. Absolutely not. I say Hashem sometimes.
Yep. And I know I do it. And I noticed that even the Limba elders do it. Like Kohen Hamadishi and different ones that we've been introduced to through Sister E's channel and platform. I've spoken with some of them and I've seen some of their interactions. And I've noticed that some of the Limba elders and even some of the Igbo elders in Nigeria that I've spoken to, they still say Hashem. And so it's not just the Israeli, Hasidic
Jew. Right.
thing.
Because even when you're saying Shem, right? when we translate Shem, it means name. But name in the Hebrew means character, reputation, or authority. That's what it means. Character, reputation, or authority. That's what Shem means. That's what name means. So when I say, hey, Yeshaya, what's your name? I'm asking you, what's your character, your reputation, your authority? So yeah, it says in the English, it says, pay attention to all that I have said to you and make no mention of the names of other gods, nor let it be heard on your lips. Right. So in the Hebrew, it would read, Ubakol Asher Amarti Elohim Tishameru Vishem Elohim Acharim lo taskiru lo Yashama al Picha. So that is Ubakol Asher Amarti. So and in all that I said, Elohim to you, what is that? Tishameru, you shall keep or guard. You shall keep or guard. Because look, when I say Tishameru, let me say it slow. Tishameru, I was going to say it fast. Tishameru. The root word is shamar, right? Y'all know what shamar means, right? Keep or guard. And when I'm adding letters in front or to the back, I know it's a second person masculine plural. I know it's a second person masculine plural because I trained my eyes with some of the words and the paradigm charts of one of them I showed you. They have various ones.
Mm-hmm.
So to you, that you shall guard or keep with Shem and the name Elohim and the name Elohim Acharim. So Acharim means others or afters, right? Afters or others. Other Elohim or other. Lo means not lo. And watch this word. Taz kiru. Taz kiru. And so the root word is zakar. Taz kiru. Right? But that's another second person masculine plural word. Not shall you bring it to your mind. Not shall you bring it to your mind.
Right.
And then lo shama. Lo yishama. So when I said yishama, what do you think the root word of that is? Shema. And y'all know what shema means, right? It means to hear and obey. So when you say Shema Yisrael Yahweh Elohim Yahweh Echad, it not only means hear, it means hear and obey.
Right.
So not shall you hear and obey. Not shall you hear and obey. Let it not be heard. Let it not be heard or obeyed from your lips. So when it pretty much from your lips, it's from what comes inside of you.
Right. Now, see,
so go ahead.
No, I'm saying that lines up, the way you're explaining that and breaking that down, that lines up with one of the points that Brother W. Mac makes in the chat, or where they say Hebrew is a practical language. So in other words,
right.
Many times we're making the understanding, the translation and transliteration harder than it should be by imposing, again, our ideas based on the culture that we actually are a product of. Because as Israelite and Hebrew as we are by blood, ancestry, we are not culturally. We're trying to understanding the culture. And so I see that, a lot. And so that's one of the things Sister E and I talk about this oftentimes too. And I've talked to Bishop Brown, who also I believe is watching. He was in the chat. We talk about how we see so many people putting yokes on our people. The very thing that Yeshua came to liberate us from.
That's right.
Now, people claiming, well, I'm trying to be free of the quote unquote traditional church. Yet you're trying to bring people into bondage to something else you don't even understand. And I think a lot of it boils down to, again, translation, transliteration, and understanding grammar. Now, because I have a question also from Brother Rohan that I'm going to go to next, but I want to ask you this question first. Could you break down for us the difference between translation and transliteration?
Absolutely. So in short, let's stick with the word dabar. Right, y'all gonna know that Hebrew word by the end of this live, right? So dabar, dalet bet resh, in its most simplistic meaning, it is word, W-O-R-D, in our English, right? W-O-R-D. Like I said, it also can mean matter or a thing. So dabar, word. That's translation. So when I see dalet,
let me interrupt. W. Mac is a lady. I'm sorry, Sister W. Mac. I said, all right, go ahead, Sister Rolla.
Oh, no problem. So that's translation. So when you see dabar or in the Greek, logos. When you see logos, when you see lambda, omicron, gamma, omicron, sigma, logos, that is word. That's translation, word, right? Now, transliteration, I'll take, I won't go into the Yeshua thing, but I won't go into that first, but I'll go into that second. So the word Elohim, right? Elohim, when we translate it, we say deity or power or God, right? Or a mighty one.
Right.
That's translation. When we talk about transliteration for Elohim, well, Elohim, and when I'm saying Elohim, watch this. It's spelled in the Hebrew, Aleph, Lamed, Aleph, Lamed, Yod. No. How is it spelled? Oh, hold on. Let me not get it wrong. Let me not get it wrong. Aleph, Lamed, Hey. Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yod, Mem, Sophie. Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Mem, Sophie. And in English, when we see Elohim written out, when we see Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yod, Mem, Sophie, we see an E to represent. You're not representing the Aleph because the Aleph is a guttural, so it's a silent. So actually, you take on the actual pronunciation of the vowel that goes with it.
Okay.
So yeah, so Aleph is the guttural. So it'll be right. And then actually Gomorrah is actually not pronounced Gomorrah. It's spelled with the I-N, but the I-N is like a that's why it sounds like a G.
So when we say Sodom and Gomorrah, we're actually saying it wrong. So how should that sound then?
Hey, it go ahead. It should sound like a motor, like a motor, like a from your throat.
So see, now that's the other point is the language is also very expressive. In other words, there are expressions that come with the language. Like, people see me talking, I talk with my hands a lot and stuff like this. I remember I was watching of all things, Family Guy, and he was making fun of the way Italians talk. Because I have those Italians are very expressive, So he thought, I was going to go in here and speak Italian, but he wasn't making any sense. He was insulting people by going, like that. A lot of languages, though, are very expressive, if not so much with the, gestures, but in the pronunciation.
Right. Okay. Right. So in the English, when we say Elohim, we're not putting an E for the Aleph. We're actually putting the E for the segol. So So what represents the or segol is the E, the letter E in our English, right? And then for the Lamed in Hebrew, what letter corresponds to that in our English? The L, right? So we put an L next, right? And then what do we represent for the holem, or the O, the holem, the O? What do we represent for the O? We put a letter O in our English, right? And then for the hey in Hebrew, for the hey in Hebrew, what do we have that corresponds to the letter hey sound in Hebrew? H. You put an H in English, right? Well, I'm spelling it out for you, right? And then for the yod, this is that matres lecciones, right? You have the hidek yod. So under the hey, you have the hidek and the yod. That's actually a vowel sound. E, hidek, E. So what do we represent for that? We put the letter I in English. And then for the mem sophit in Hebrew, right? For the mem sophit in Hebrew, mem in Hebrew, mem. What letter corresponds to that sound in English? Our letter M. So we put the letter M. That's transliteration. So
I get it, because you're changing alphabets so that people who don't speak that original language can pronounce the word in their language according to their vernacular. Just like with the example that I used before in the book of Judges, where even in Israel, the Manassites and they couldn't, when they said Sibo, one said Shibboleth, the other one said Siboleth. So even they had, nuances in pronoun. And these are people that both speak Hebrew.
Right. And look, your name.
Right.
Your name. Right. Look at your name.
Right. Isaiah in English, Yeshaya in Hebrew, Isaias in Spanish, and different languages. Right.
That you have transliterated your name to English. You have put English letters that represent the sounds of the Hebrew consonants.
Right. So see, and that right there, now that's why I wanted to bring that out, because I want to give people relief who feel persecuted by their own Israelite brothers because they say Jesus and not Yeshaya, Yahashua. Yahawashai.
It's the same person.
Because I'm like, this is a transliteration.
Transliteration. Yeah. So if you go from pretty much. Well, let's do this. So, Yeshua. Yeshua, you have the yod, right? So that would be your letter Y, right? And then the sere under the yod, that would represent the E in English, right? And then the sh consonant, we don't have an sh consonant, right? So well, we don't have a shin consonant, so we actually have the two letters that would represent that shin sound. So we have an S and an H, right? So, so that's Y, and then let me do this, not to confuse the people. So Yeshua to Jesus, people want to know how you go that. So Y would be for your J or your I, right? In the Greek.
But the letter J is only 500 years old.
Yeah, I know, right? So they put the hook on it. Same thing. But
right.
and then the S sound, you would use the letter E, right? And then the shin, you would use SH. And then the shurdek, you would use the letter U, because that represents the U. And then it would be the ah sound at the end, right? Well, actually, let me go back. The shin, we would just have the S, because we don't have one letter to represent those two letters, the shin, the SH. But so they use just the S. But to the IN at the end of the IN, Yeshua, the IN. In Greek, you end a male's name with the sigma.
Right. So Yasus with the IEO kind of.
Right. So that's how you go from Yeshua to Jesus, or even Jesus to Jesus. So the what is it? The iota. It's the iota, eta, sigma, omicron, epsilon, and sigma. So that the I would be the yod, and then the eta would be the E, and then the S would be the sigma would be the S, and then the omicron, epsilon, that would be your U sound, right? Together.
Right.
So
Okay.
you would just use a U, and then the sigma would be the S, right? So, yeah.
That's interesting. I know in certain Bantu languages, because I did a teaching a while ago, because we have a lot of people also too who think that Hebrew is actually Bantu, and I talked a little bit about that. I taught on that because I think that's inaccurate. And I've been familiar with Bantu languages since I was a child, because my father used to speak Swahili, taught it to us. So and then and when I've heard people make that claim, what I asked them is, well, which of the over 600 Bantu languages is it from then? It shows the lack of understanding that people have of the languages.
Right.
Because when you translate Yeshua, or Jesus into those other languages, like for instance, Xhosa and Zulu, which are very similar, then or even if you go to Shona, or Sotho, or some of those other languages, you would often see the name spelled Yesu.
Right.
Because it would be based
that makes sense.
Right. They would actually shorten it, even more than Jesus, but it would be the same name. And I've been a person who's never been one of the opinion, that when you call his name, in whatever language you call his name, he's not confused. In heaven, Thomas and Gabriel, they better start calling my name right, or say my name. I ain't Beyonce, but better say my name. And he ain't up there in heaven doing that, because he will respond. I believe firmly that the Most High responds to us according to our faith, no matter what language we call his name.
That's right.
And so he's not looking for you to be a perfect linguist. And I think this is what separates our faith from other faiths, such as like Islam, that teaches that Arabic, is a pure language, and they, push people hard to learn. I mean, they got Arabic classes going on right around the corner from where I live here in Atlanta at the Masjid. Because I'm in a kind of an international neighborhood. I have Ethiopian Coptics. On one side, Sunni Islam on one side,
Mm.
Shia on Islam on the other side, Orthodox Jews, and then Messianic Israelites from the continent of Africa that are also. And so it's interesting, the community that I'm in, and so I listen keenly.
Right.
There are even Jews here from India. And that introduces a whole another dynamic, because in Hindi, or Bengali, wherever they're from in India, they also speak differently. And what I noticed is all of these people that seem to come outside of Western United States culture don't seem to be bound by these language restrictions like those of us who are within the culture. We seem to be the only ones having these debates about how to say his name. They can say his name in Amharic, Tigray, Amaru, or Oromo, or whatever language they come from, and you never hear them talk something. You better say his name like this. The only folks doing that is a bunch of folks who can't speak the original language.
We get overzealous when we come into this walk. I mean, and we get so emotionally attached, and anything that goes against our emotional paradigm has to be challenged, and we start falling in love with some sort of pet doctrine or whatever, and we hold on to it like a security blanket. But yeah, I see it. Can I answer today Ben Israel's question real quick? He says, wouldn't Joshua be a closer transliteration to Jesus?
Okay, yeah, go ahead and answer that question.
Well,
because I see people say that too. Joshua, Yahashua.
So there's Hebrew and then there's Aramaic. So with Hebrew you have Yod Hey Wah Shin Ayin, or Yod Hey Wah Shin Wah Ayin. Even if you left the Wah out at the end of the word I just spelled, Yehoshua. If even if you left the Wah out, you can actually put a kibbutz or a U sound under the shin, right? So you can actually spell it Yod Hey Wah Shin Ayin, Yehoshua. Notice that a lot of the names, a lot of the names, the proper names, nouns that are used for the men and the women, they're actually from a lot of action words. So the root words, I believe, for Joshua is Yod Hey Wah Hey and Yasha.
Right. For saying.
And so, yeah, and this gets into that verb conjugation I was talking about. So when you're actually when you're getting to verb conjugations and you're looking at the conglomerate of words, you're looking at Yod Hey Wah Hey and Yasha, right? So that would be Yahshua, right? When you actually, you can, when you're pronouncing the hey and the holem quickly, that would be pretty much Yeho or Yoshua. Now, when you look at Aramaic, you start getting into the short form, the shortened forms of names, like Yehochanan becomes Yochanan.
Right. How we end up getting done, right?
Yep. And then with the shortening of Yehoshua, you get Yoshin Wa Ayin. And if you actually look at the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, you actually see Yeshua. You see a Yod with a Sede, and then you see a Shin with a Shurek, and then an Ayin, Yeshua.
Now see that I'm gonna have to save that for next time, because that's what I wanted to get into also later on into the Aramaic, because that's the language that I noticed a lot of slang. And I kind of look at Aramaic as being similar to what's called Spanglish. You're in California, so you know Spanglish.
I do. I hear it. I know when I hear it.
Yeah. Spanglish. It's almost like a sub dialect of Spanish. Like one of my partners I was in the Marine Corps with, he went on embassy duty to Spain. He came back and he said, "Man, they made me feel about this big." I said, "What happened?" He said, "I was like, yeah, I'm bilingual. I start speaking my Spanish." He said, "Man, them Castilian speaking Spanish people looked at me and said, you have ruined our language. And they basically told him, they said, that's Spanglish.
Right. Right.
And I noticed that even among Spanish speakers in the West, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Dominican, they all have different dialects.
A dialect, yep, of it.
Within that's an interesting thing. What's Sister E? Where you at? You've been quiet because I've been doing a run in my mouth.
What up, Sister E? Speak on it.
You got a question because I'm gonna put Rohan's question on next. You got a question for our sister? I know you gonna have her on your show anyway, but I know y'all will be talking about some other stuff. But you got a good question for her?
No, I'm just listening. I'm just I'm always intrigued by the language. I would love to learn the language if I could have the time to sit down, because it takes time. Like she said, people want to learn it and know it within a couple of weeks and then be ready to teach it. Just the vowels alone, she just said, yeah, it would take me about a good month to get the gist of it. And you got to humble people. Don't want to humble themselves. They want. I just want to learn. So
that's right.
It takes weeks. It takes weeks to even learn the alphabet, and then the vowels. It took, like, if you're thinking you can come to a class once a week for an hour, that's not going to cut it. You will definitely need to learn. You will definitely need to practice and study at least an hour a day. I would say no. Let me not go too brutal. That was me. No less than 30 minutes a day, at least for a few days out the week. No less than that. Now, if you really want to get it, it's still going to take you a few weeks. An hour. You're going to need to write. And also flashcards. Them flashcards.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Wow.
And then music. Moray David, he's in my head. Like, I need to incorporate more music. Like, he actually had us learn a whole song in Hebrew, and I know a little bit of it, but man, that's how you learn a lot. A lot of the YouTube songs, they have the words translated or transliterated and then translated, so you can learn that way. But music and melody, you learn that way too. But it's gonna take weeks. This stuff, I didn't get this overnight. Definitely not overnight.
So you might have to come back with Hebrew cipher, Hebrew rap, freestyle.
Oh, absolutely.
You better come back.
Yeah, or I'll sing the song to you that I learned. You know what I'm saying? I'll sing the song to you a little bit.
Okay.
I won't mess up your ears right now. But.
Well, definitely, because like I said, this is just part one. So like, we're gonna use you, and I know you go on Sister E's platform, she's gonna expose you to a whole other audience and expose them to you. And so, we're gonna use you, sis.
Yeah, I know they're gonna be ready to pounce on me in that lesson, boy. Oh boy.
well, hey,
in my house, they will get booted if you come for my guest. Especially with this conversation, this is going to be a real eye-opening conversation that people need to hear and understand. I give a snippet. What does it mean? What does submission really mean?
Y'all women's can't be talking about no submission and y'all ain't got y'all head covered. Where y'all doing is at? Y'all ain't got y'all head covered. Y'all better not show y'all face on the screen.
Don't do it, Isaiah. Don't do it.
No. I got my head covered with my next hairstyle, but
right. All this here.
But it's
that's how folks gonna be acting. People major in the minor so much they miss the message and they hurt themselves. So now here's a question for Brother Rohan. He said, what does the word fair mean in the Bible? And what is the Hebrew word for fair, especially when describing David in 1 Samuel? So I pulled up the scripture that he's referring to. And so we have it here in, I believe this is 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse number 42.
So 1 Samuel
Yep.
Chapter 17.
Yep, verse number 42. Let's see
Okay.
if I can get it bigger on the screen for everybody to see it. So I have it highlighted right above his question.
I'm about to say, is it when this question came up, I was like, I wonder if he's talking about Yafa or Yod Pei Hey. And guess what? It is.
There it is.
It is Yod Pei Hey.
Okay.
And here is translated handsome, right?
Right. And this is why I use parallel versions, because you see on the left side, ESV.
Yeah, it says fair. Oh, yeah.
Right. And then the ESV, it uses handsome.
Yeah, Yafeh. That also translates as beautiful.
Right.
I mean, it just means beautiful.
Right, because I think, and then too, this is Old King James English. Translated, this is Old King James English in the KJV, so they didn't go around necessarily saying people were beautiful or handsome. They would say they were fair.
Fair, yeah, that's
like
that English, man.
Right. Just like to the point that was brought out earlier, how even over time within a culture, language changes. For instance, you read certain literature from just as early as, let's say, the early 1900s, 1800s, and in English, and they talk about, I'm having a jolly gay day.
Right.
In 2021.
You can't say that in 2021.
So, back then, gay just meant happy-go-lucky.
Mm-hmm.
But because of a change in the culture, a cultural shift, and people co-opting that word now, if I go amongst the homies and say, hey, man, I'm having a jolly gay day, all my homies going to be like...
They're going to look at you with contempt.
Yeah.
They're going to ready to slice you.
Yeah, you coming out the closet, bro? Is it something we didn't know?
Right.
And I'm not talking about, a lifestyle at all. I'm talking about me feeling happy-go-lucky. But again, it's just an example in how things change. So when you read this in the KJV and you see fair, in our modern understanding now, we talk about being fair. We mean two things: either a practice that's even, that's judicious, or a literal fair where people go and get on rides and eat, cotton candy. People don't think of fair anymore as having to do with appearance.
Or some people use fair as some sort of light skin tone and complexion.
Right.
They think,
So they think fair mean he was white.
Yeah.
Right. And even if you read this though properly in the Old English, it tells you David is anything but white. When it says he's ruddy, it's telling you that he's dark. Because the ruddy would give the inference or tone that we would think of it as almost being dirty or reddish,
like dirt, right? Because the word is Edom,
right?
Aleph, Dalet, Mem, Sophie, right?
And so it's telling you that he's young. When it says for he was youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance, he's young, he's a red bone, and he's good. That's what it's telling you.
Right. That's what it's saying.
David was a young, red bone black man who was
pretty much pleasant to the eyes to look at.
Well, that's why he had all the women.
Pleasant to the eyes to look at. Yes. Yafeh. Yep.
That's why the brother had all the women.
You crazy.
So, what was that brother that they made famous that went viral? Where he said, "I am delivered."
Oh
said,
yeah.
David was a young, light-skinned or red bone brother that liked women's. So there you go. All right, brother Ro. I hope that answered your question, man.
Yep.
We know that.
My gosh. Right.
You know, and then here's a good point by Sister.
Mm-hmm.
I got that right this time, W Mac. All right. Then she says, I teach, and most of my students, us, have great comprehension, but the vocabulary is lacking. Our counterparts can parse language, but often lack proper comprehension. Now that kind of speaks to what you said earlier. So what do you think about that?
Definitely. Yeah. They a lot of people definitely lack comprehension, critical thinking skills. Bevakasha, Rohan. That means you're welcome. Yeah, they lack knowing what definition the word is used in when it comes to context, or actual critical thinking skills. You know, I don't think I can say any more to that. It's just like, well, a lot of times, like the American culture is so embedded into us, and that's why some people like, the KJV only people. They only want to go to the KJV. They don't use any kind of lexicon to try to go into any Hebrew definition at all, because when they see a word in the KJV and they see it in their English, right? They read it in the English, they get to translate their English definition for that word. That's why there's so many doctrines and dogmas, but they lack the comprehension sometimes because they want to lack the comprehension because it doesn't fit their narrative, because it doesn't fit what's convenient to them, right? A lot of people don't want to understand, certain things, like I'll use a word that just came up, ragalim for feet, right? Those that word is used to when the a couple of who's that, Caleb and who else went up to spy out the land? Joshua. Regalim, you know, the feet. It means also to travel. So when you see the word for feet, it just means to travel. Well, sometimes people are going to be like, oh, that always got to mean feet. It always got to mean feet. They don't want to comprehend that it means to travel, especially also that's what's used for the feast days. And every Moedim is not a feast day. The feast days are the ones where you regularly go up with your feet. You go up with your feet, right? That's Pesach, unleavened bread. That's Shavuot, and then Feast of Tabernacles. Those are actual the Moedim called the feast days. The other ones are not called feast days.
Whew. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, sis.
Yeah.
You have been a blessing to us here on part one of linguistics, translation and transliteration, and I'm definitely gonna bring you back, because like I said, I want to do something with you on a regular basis. So y'all, we're gonna bring Sister Ashanti back regularly. So I'm gonna have her back monthly. And we might even try to. I'm gonna see how many times we can get her, and then whatnot. We might have to make her do a rap too,
Oh yeah.
I don't know if Sister E knew that Ashanti, she was heavy with the lyrics, E, before she really got heavy in the language. She had that MC Light vibe going on.
Oh yeah, I know. I gotta come up here and do my lesson on Niggabonics. So
hey, I want in on that, please.
All right, so next time.
Y'all was looking real serious, like what she get ready to say. I said,
Yeah.
So y'all look for the flyer on that right there. Sorry, Sister E, I'm just gonna let her take over the show. All right. But for anyone, before we close or end, for anyone that wants to donate tonight, anything you donate to me to Cash App, whether it's by my Cash App and PayPal, which is on the screen, $ IJ West, and for Cash App or PayPal.me/IJ West. That's all going to go to Sister Ashanti for taking her time, to be a blessing to us. She's on the West Coast. All right. So she's so there's about a 3-hour time difference between her and I. So I want to make sure I could coordinate this with her at a time that was appropriate for her, and because y'all, especially a lot of y'all who hang out with my Sister E, y'all be up all night long into the wee hours of the morning. So, and it's Friday night. Like I said, I think y'all sanctified now, so y'all ain't going out to the club. Okay. Don't be using no excuse. I just went to get wings. I know the wings is good at the club, but
don't tell my secrets. Don't tell my secrets.
Y'all get them wings at home. I went to the club in the day to go order.
All right. Tell people how I go get my wings. They think that I get
we done told our Sister E how she get the wings. I'm delivered, so I can talk about her. That's how folks do. When they get delivered from something, they talk about how everybody else ain't delivered from it.
Right. That's what they do. That's what they do.
They act like don't stop by the club go get the hot wings. Every time I talk to them, we eat hot wings.
All right. So last question, Brother Sadega, he got some good questions. Good questions.
Yeah.
And he asked the question, which is better for translation for the New Testament, Greek or Aramaic? I'll let you answer that one, sis.
Oh, well, for the Aramaic or for the Greek, you're going to get a variation in a couple of words for the Aramaic, especially. I'm forgetting. I'm forgetting which passage, but there's a difference. Oh no, what is it? Call no man a fool or something like that. In the Aramaic, I think a translation is like call no man like homosexual or something like that. In Aramaic, it's something like that. But I tended to. I don't do the Aramaic, but I believe it's okay. I believe it's okay. I can't say it's better, but it's okay. For the New Testament and the Greek, that's what I do. I do stick to mainly, and I'll say because, like I said, in the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st century BCE, a lot of the Jews began speaking Greek as their common language. A lot of them lost the ability to speak Hebrew and even Aramaic. Mm-hmm. That's what I said. They had the Septuagint, So when you got the Septuagint, that lets us know, like, hey, a lot of our people spoke Greek. That's the difference between when you see the word for Greek and then Grecian. A Grecian is a Greek-speaking Jew, and a Greek is just somebody of that nationality. But I stick with the Greek. I can definitely understand the concepts there. I also look at uncials and papyri to see which words were actually in the text versus which ones were added. Say, for example, after the 6th century CE or added after the 12th century CE. There's definitely been some things added to the text in Aramaic as well as Greek. Like what is that when the rich young ruler when he says, "Hey, master, I followed all of these, no, what he says, good master or good teacher, or whatever, right? What of the commandments must I do to have eternal life or whatever, right?" And there's a response from Yeshua or Jesus that says, "Why callest me thou good? There's only one good," right? Well, the part where it says, "Why callest me thou good? There's only one good," that's not in the original papyri of the New Testament. And I actually get that from here. I like to go back and look at things that were added. I look at so this is the text of the earliest New Testament Greek manuscripts. The only ones that's missing is First and Second Timothy. Those are not in here. I think those manuscripts maybe were found later. Like the total portion of those were found later.
Put that on the screen real big. Put that up again, Shanti. Let me make sure I put it the earliest New Testament Greek manuscripts. Let me make sure I put. Well, I'm trying to get you up there. I'm messing around with this doggone layout.
Yeah. So
bottom thing,
yeah.
I got the question on it so they can see the full picture.
Okay, yeah, let me move the question. All right, there we go.
Yeah, so I tend to go back and find out what phrases, what words were added. There's definitely a lot of added things, a lot of added words and phrases.
Okay.
But the gist of the message stays the same. But with what I just said for those two things, like when it says, "Oh, why callest me thou good?" You know, I know I know people have built whole lessons on that phrase that's not in the original. And then the Aramaic, when I was saying, don't call nobody a fool in the Aramaic, in the Greek it says don't call nobody fool or raka. And in the Aramaic, I think that's where somebody says, well, don't call somebody homosexual or something like that. But with the Aramaic, you do have what did I say, sect or denomination renderings of how they will see words, and you can see that in both the Aramaic and the New Testament. So,
right.
Mm-hmm.
Because I put it on the screen. Let me see here. I'm gonna put it back on the screen. That the verse that you're talking about in Matthew 5:22, because that is something where this is interesting that raka is an Aramaic word. It's neither Hebrew nor Greek. But Aramaic is a sub, class or a sub. It's a Hebrew. It's a form of Hebrew because they were able to communicate. But
it's a Near Eastern language. I would call it a Near Eastern language. Mm-hmm. Right.
But yeah, that's interesting you bring that up because here in Matthew 5:22, where it says, we look at the King James version. That's why I always use parallel versions. Because as somebody had asked me a while ago, why do when I'm using the parallel versions, why is the ESV sometimes different than KJV? And that was a good question. And it's because the manuscripts that each translation is using is different. The ESV
let me correct myself real quick. When I said it said call no man homosexual, it said call no man effeminate. That's what somebody was saying is rendered in the Aramaic for this verse. They were saying call no man effeminate. So yeah, I just wanted to correct myself on that. Sorry.
When I look up that word, though, I don't know how they got that understanding because I've always understood raka in Aramaic to mean worthless. And so I've never seen the effeminate definition anywhere.
They might be using a different word in the Aramaic. That's what I was saying for some Aramaic translations, not a lot of, but the denominations or the sects who are writing these things, remember that too, right? Or the people or the disciples, right? They're writing according to what their understanding is at that time something was said. So maybe in the Aramaic, one sect say, hey, he said, don't call somebody effeminate. Well, another disciple who was maybe a student of John or whoever, like, okay, well, I recall he's saying, don't call nobody a fool.
Right.
So those things you are to be aware of. But.
Right. And that's another good point. Because like I said, even on the screen, we see the ESV and KJV both translate that passage differently.
Mm-hmm. I mean, either or. I see. Don't be calling nobody either or of anything, because if you're actually shunning somebody, calling them out of their name or what they are, or who they are, then you're gonna be in danger, pretty much. You know what I mean? That's what I get from the gist of it.
Right. Because it's like bearing false witness. You basically
Right.
slander this person's character.
Right.
That's not true.
There you go. Or condemning them to a place you don't know if they're going or not, because you don't know if you're going or not. You know what I mean?
Man. And some folks, the way they act, they go in there with all their different ways of saying the name and telling everybody else we saying it wrong. So, folks that say Yahushua can go to hell just like folks that say Jesus. And ain't nobody arguing about how to say his name in hell.
That's right.
Well,
man. Mm-hmm.
I have thoroughly enjoyed myself having you on, and like I said, we're gonna get together and we're gonna do this again, because I got to get you back on here. We got to have you on here regularly, and then I'm looking forward to what you and Troublemaker number one. That's her down at the bottom of the screen, y'all, that I'm talking about.
Always the troublemaker.
I'm looking forward to what y'all about to stir up. So the Daughters of Zion will be gathering, and they will also be here. They're always welcome here. And so, Sister E, when are you all going to be on your platform with Sister Ashanti? Go ahead and let us know when we're going to be when to tune in for that.
It's going to be October 10th, right, sis?
The 16th.
The 16th.
You said the 16th.
Hold on, let me make sure. Hold on, because let's see.
Yep, the 16th.
The 16th. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, okay, it is the 16th. So it'll be me and her. Let me look at StreamYard. Let me go to StreamYard real quick and give you exact time. It will be the 16th at 9 p.m. Eastern. So however that fits in your time equation, but 9 p.m. Eastern on October 16th. And the subject will be, what is submission? You're going to have some brews. Their heads going to be spinning.
Well, y'all about to get in trouble.
Yeah, big trouble.
Y'all about to get in trouble.
Big trouble.
Like Sweet Daddy used to say on Good Times, ooh, you in trouble. I just dated myself. Y'all don't know about that.
Right.
All right. So with all of that, so like I said, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna close this out on Shabbat, because I think this is the best day or best time for us to do a lot of these teachings. And I want to do some more of these teachings. And like I said, we're going to bring Sister Ashanti back. And y'all know how I always say when we get ready to go, we're not always right and others aren't always wrong. And sis, I love your humility and that you're willing also to, and this is one of the things I always look for in teachers, whether it's a more or mora, is the person's willingness and openness to say, hey, I could be wrong, or let me double check that and things of this sort. Because a lot of folks teach with an absolute mindset that they can never be wrong. And I think that when you have that mentality, that makes you probably more wrong than you are right. Because you start to go to that dogma of ain't nobody got it right but us. And that's what you see in a lot of congregations where the folks think they're the only ones going to heaven and everybody else needs to join their church or their congregation or their kind of remind me of the old lady when I used to go visit another ministry that I actually ministered at. And there was an overzealous usher that used to follow me around and say things like, are you saved, brother? Did you get baptized? Did you speak in tongues? I say, yes, mother, all of that. She said, well, I didn't hear you. I said, well, I didn't hear you neither. How would I have a blessed day? So, we still have, that's why I say all the time, people get upset, but I say Israelites are recycled church folks. Because we learn to unlearn, but a lot of stuff, you can change the atmosphere and the setting and everything, but if you don't change your mentality, you're the same person, even if you change languages, and things of this sort. And so there's a lot of things that there's a part of who we are, and we have to change us, irregardless or regardless. All right, so we're not always right and others aren't always wrong. And then keep it in line with what Yeshua told us in John chapter 5, verse 39. He says, search the scriptures, for in them ye think ye have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. Think is the biggest word in this whole passage. because it's telling you not to be so self-assured that you don't need to search or study. Okay, because all in all, from Genesis to Maps, the book is about him, not us. He's the focal point. He's the one who saves. And then Acts chapter 17, verse number 11 says, now these Yahudim or Jews were more noble. And why were they more noble? It's going to tell us right in the passage. They were more noble than those in Thessalonica. Here's the answer. Because they received the word with all eagerness, examining the scriptures daily to see if these things were so. So we want to receive what we've heard tonight with all eagerness. We want to examine the scriptures daily. Not now and then, but daily. Don't let your scriptures collect dust. All right. To see if these things were so. We got a lot of great information from our dearly beloved Sister Ashanti, and we're going to be so glad to have her back for part number 2 and beyond. All right, because we're going to let the Most High use her according to the way he's gifted her and be a blessing to the people. You know, always remember this, and I say this, beloved. If you're gifted to do something and you're not doing it, you're sinning against the Most High and against the people that he sent you to give the gift to. Because you're robbing us of the blessing that you are supposed to be to us. And that's why I'm totally against trying to shut women down and not allow them to be used. That's like needing, when you do that, again, you're cutting off half the power. So you basically living in a house where half of it is dark and the other part got light. You can't even enjoy the whole space that the Most High has given to you. So we got to learn how to operate and work within our community and allow people to be used as the Most High has gifted them to be a blessing to us as a body as a whole. So we're going to use you, sis, because we believe he's gifted you. All right. So with that being said, beloved, that's going to bring this portion of our learning to a close just for today. But if the Lord willing, all right, and he say the same, we will be back again to do more of this. So until the next time, beloved, shalom yadid, and may the Most High bless you in Yeshua's mighty name.
Hallelujah. Shalom aleichem.
Shalom. All right, Sister Ashanti.